Chiqui Stories podcast with Chiqui Pineda Zimi is supported in part by the Vita Babes, the Chiqui Stories Saturday Facebook community, friends and family. Learn more at chiquipineda.com.
The Chiqui Story. Podcast's primary purpose is to educate and entertain. We are here to share stories and experiences based on our team's and guests' personal knowledge. We will have friendly, casual conversations, but not give professional advice or services. TCSP is for private, non-commercial use, and our guests do not necessarily reflect our team's views and opinions. Earphones are highly recommended, especially when there are young children around. Also, there may be barking noises. Thank you and enjoy the podcast. Hello. The Chiqui Stories podcast's primary purpose is to... Showing. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Chiqui Stories podcast. And my name is Chiqui Pineda, and I am here to welcome all of you. Hihinga po muna ako dahil hindi po maganda ang pakiramdam ng inyong Chiquiness today. Sana po hindi mahalata. I had colds and I was sniffling and coughing earlier today. But I have taken all the legal and allowed drugs that I can take. Tylenol, Advil, another Advil, cold and flu. So pag medyo pumitik-pitik po yung aking mata, alam niyo na po kung anong nangyari sa akin. I have not taken this many pills in a long time. But like I said on the Facebook page, the show must go on. And when I receive messages from you guys saying that you are excited to watch and be part of the podcast and to ask questions from our very special guest today, who I will be introducing in a little while, then I get encouraged and lumalakas na naman po ang aking pakiramdam. So I do apologize for any bouts of coughing that will happen. I will try to turn it off as I can, pero kung hindi ko po talaga mahuli, pasensya na po. I will do my very best to bring you the best TCSP episode 3. Yay! We made it to episode 3, and I couldn't think of a better place and better people to be with while I am feeling under the weather than my guest today and my co-creator and my producer, Charina Giron, who is in the green room and helping me out in all the ways possible. So if you have any questions, my darlings, please post them right here on the comments section. And I welcome all of you, even the ones watching on the recording and watching, first of all, watching the live, welcome. Thank you for being here on episode 3. And those watching sa recording po natin, welcome to you as well. Kasi maaga pa sa Pilipinas eh. It's 8:30, so some of my friends have executive hours. Natutulog pa po sila. Anyway, wag nang magpaligoy-ligoy, Chiquiness. Let us introduce our episode 3 spotlight on Miss Arlene Oliveros. And this is the very special little intro that I made for her. And I'm going to put it up right now. Recognized by Tatler Asia as one of the most influential female wine experts, Arlene Oliveros wears many hats as a food and wine specialist and as an entrepreneur. She is an internationally renowned Filipino-Canadian Sommelier, food and wine reviewer, and VINOpreneur behind her world of wines and Fraiche Vinotherapy and Enocosmetics. In 2015, the national magazine Canadian Immigrant placed Arlene on its cover and recognized her as the first Filipino-Canadian Certified Sommelier. In 2019, in Paris, France, Arlene was recognized as one of
100 Most Influential Filipina Women by the Global Filipino Women's Network for her trailblazing journey in the global wine industry. In 2021, Singapore's Wine and Dine included her in the list of 7 female wine experts in Asia who, quote, break the glass ceiling, close quote, and pave the way for other women in wine. Currently, Arlene is in the Philippines launching her own terroir-focused Olive Rose Farmhouse and Farm Kitchen in Nasugbu, Batangas, where she is the chef, sommelier, and passionate storyteller of fine food and wines. In her recently launched social media platform, The Food and Wine Guru, Food, Wine, and Life, Arlene explains that her priority now is to challenge the global wine industry to a paradigm shift. She teaches a more mindful approach to the enjoyment of food and wines and shifts the message of wines toward promoting kindness, equality, love, and compassion in the world. Ladies and gents, boys and girls, please welcome to the Chiqui Stories podcast, Miss Arlene Oliveros.
Hi, Arlene.
Hi.
Welcome, my sister. How
Good
are
morning.
you?
Good
morning.
day. Good evening sa kabilang side ng mundo. It's daytime here in the Philippines where I am in Tagaytay.
Tagaytay City. Wow. Wow. Thank you for being a part of the Chiqui Stories podcast, Arlene. I am so honored that you have said yes to my invitation. Thank you.
It's such a great honor, and I'm so humbled to be on episode 3. I cannot say no, Chiqui. I will always have time for you.
Thank you so much. You know, mga artistas, kami po ni Arlene, ang ganda nung aming pagsasama eh. Remember how we met? It was
Yes.
such a, I would say, para siyang divine intervention po yung nangyari sa amin ni Arlene. A little, I'm gonna give a little bit of a background while you're grounding yourself in this. I know it's a little bit unnerving to be part of StreamYard, but I met Arlene when I was at my lowest point during my very first venture in production. And because I was so, kasi ang hirap pala talaga ng production work, concert production po yun back in 2018. And ang bait talaga ng Panginoon kasi binigay po niya sa akin si Arlene who has so much experience in production and who has such a caring and giving heart in terms of mentorship, in empathy, in kahit po hindi ko masabi ng tama, sommelier. Kahit sommelier po siya and she is a world traveler and she has so many awards. She is one of the most down-to-earth people that I have ever met. And you're in for a treat, my friends. Right, Erlinsky? That was the best.
Naiyak naman ako sa iyong introduction.
It's 100% true. You really saved my ass during that time.
I think it was also very refreshing to me. I think I mentioned that to you many times. I think, again, divine intervention, like many things in my life, I am such a believer that, things happen for a reason. And sometimes, you'll be amazed kasi yung mga happenstances and those random people you meet, they really have a message to tell you, or they really have a way to sort of influence the energy in your life, right? And
Absolutely
that also happened to me kasi when we met, it was also when I had a very short time to stay in Canada. So I was traveling a lot. I was so detached from my community. I was detached even from my own family. Having just completed my journey of studying a few wine regions in Europe. So it was really reconnecting, and you're such a, you're one of the best people to reconnect with.
Thank you so much. Speaking of reconnecting, I would like to take a few seconds to reconnect with our audience. We have so many regulars, wonderful people, patrons right here, and I will greet some of them. I'm just going to go really fast. Hi, Rosalina and Amor, Olan. Jonathan is here, Ron Loteria, Mary Ann, some of our favorites, and regulars. Dolly, Eliza, Lauren, Rina, Raquel, Dolly PS. We have two different Dollys here, 1 and 2. Pam and Cesar. So welcome all of you guys.
Welcome.
Arlene is right here for all of us to share her knowledge of share her experiences. Ang gusto ko talagang pag-usapan natin, Arlene, yung mga travels mo eh. Pero later yan. I always like starting with, let's go back to little Arlene. So when you were young, what was Arlene like as a youngster, as a child?
Ah, uh, very normal because I grew up in Tondo. So I was one of those kids who really, enjoyed yung larong kalsada. No, I have
Mm-hmm.
to use those words. It was a very normal childhood. Except that, of course, it's Tondo, and part of the normalcy is you're exposed to all the, the crimes and the violence because um, the thing is that Tondo in the 1970s was different from the Tondo now. At those times, it was the Asyong Salonga
Mm-hmm.
era, all those, troubled people who were really, involved in violence, right? So it's a Tondo has been very stigmatized, right? And I
Yeah.
think even now, because I still pass by Tondo, when we go back to Navotas, and we always pass by the harbor area, North Harbor area, and we
Yeah.
still see, it's still very sad to see all the the slum the slum areas there around the harbor. So it's still part of it is still very impoverished, I have to say. And that's why I just
Yeah.
did an event with Chalice Canada because one of the communities that they have been supporting for many years is Tondo. So it goes to show that as a huge part of the metropolis still suffers from that poverty, and I grew up so accustomed to that. That's why when you ask me what was my first fantasies, one of my first fantasies as a child,
Yeah.
and don't get me wrong, like I have to be very careful with my words here.
Yeah.
One of my fantasies was to really get out of Tondo as a child because I there was so much about our living structure that I didn't like as a child. We didn't have our own room as kids, and I saw other people. They have their own rooms. Young girls, they have their own rooms. I read from a magazine an article. There was this child with her decorated room filled with pinks, and pastels, and as a child, I never had that. And plus, we lived with alcoholic relatives. So
Mm.
that's I think that's the irony of my life.
Yes.
I grew up hating that, and as an adult, it's the journey that I followed through, and I ended up being an alcohol expert,
An expert.
to put it lightly.
Mas
Um,
okay na yung alcohol expert kaysa alcoholic.
yes, and I think it's because the fascination really started there. And
Mm.
I was asking as a child, why would my uncles behave this way when they drink this beverage? Why were their neighbors who would always, stay on the streets just drinking? I was wondering, what were their wives doing? What were their children doing if they were drinking on the streets of Tondo for hours? These were regular images that I grew up as a child. And I think that helped in a certain degree because I learned restraint. I
Mm-hmm.
learned that there has to be control.
Yeah. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be completely either or na completely not nothing, right?
Uh,
It's you can well what I'm trying to say is you can still enjoy alcohol but responsibly and in moderation.
Exactly. In fact, it is biblical. I mean, wine, of course, has been written about. It's a
Oh
historic
yeah.
drink. It's in
Uh-huh.
the Bible, right? It's
Mismo.
really the most historic beverage. The problem gets in when the focus is no longer on wine itself. What is the core of wine, which is basically it's an agricultural product. It's based on grapes. It's a product of the land. It's a product of the farmers. But if the core becomes the alcohol, right?
Yeah.
That's the worldly part. Then that becomes the problem.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Yes, it is biblical, sabi ni Lauren Rubin Cobero. Turning water into wine nga, di ba?
Yeah, and in my experience too, I learned to appreciate God's creations even better because
Mm-hmm.
of my wine journey. Because to tell you honestly, the most beautiful places that one can visit in his lifetime is really the vineyards, wine regions of the world. Like
Yes.
if you create a list of, okay, which places in the world are really worthwhile to visit, you start with um, naming all the wine regions and
Yeah.
Google them, research on
Yeah.
them, and
Yes.
you'll realize that they are really, indeed, they are the most beautiful areas of the world. And the
Yes.
reason being is because, you know, they're just natural, right? They're not man-made. They
Mm-hmm.
are what our nature is supposed to be. So yeah, it's I mean, for people who are looking forward to traveling, especially post pandemic,
Yeah.
that's a tip. Like research on wine regions.
One of my favorite, it's in my bucket list. It has been in my bucket list, Arlene, ever since I watched Under the Tuscan Sun. Do you know
Yes,
that movie? I
yes,
love
yes,
that
of course.
movie. And
Yes,
it's set in wine country.
yes,
And they
in
were,
Tuscany.
have you been to Tuscany?
Yes, I actually lived there for a bit. It's
Oh,
one of the most beautiful wine regions. Really enchanting. It's
yes.
too enchanting that the interestingly, the most difficult time of my traveling in Italy actually happened in Toscana, being lost in Tuscany, and it's because
Toscana.
it's too enchanting. At the time when
Mhm.
I was starting my exploration of the Tuscan vineyards,
Yeah.
wala pang GPS noon, wala pang Google Maps,
Yes.
and I went on a 6-month trip on my own, traveling on my own. Like I would rent cars from one region to another, and I would travel, not
Mhm.
necessarily flying from one region to another. I was tagang malakas ang loob, no? And I remember I got lost on my way to to Tuscany, and it was
Yeah.
because I was so enchanted. It was
Yeah.
so beautiful. I would stop every
Yeah.
now and then and I would
Mhm.
take pictures.
Yeah.
And para kang naengkanto sa ganda. And then I realized that I was actually on the other side of the region, and I was
Yeah.
trapped on top of a mountain for about 6 hours until I had to call Raymond, my husband, so that he could help me sort out where I was.
Wow. But
So, yeah,
ang sarap mawala dun. That would be the
masarap
best place to
mawala.
get. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wait, Arlene,
Exactly.
I'm gonna backtrack a little bit, if with your permission, okay? Because
Sure.
we already know that Miss Arlene Oliveros is a sommelier, and she has all of the uh, accreditation and all of that. But what I want to know and hear from you, and this question is for my friends, fellow immigrants who are in cross at a crossroads in their life. When you decide, is sommelier becoming a sommelier? Am I saying it right before I continue?
Sommelier. Yeah.
Sommelier,
Yay.
sommelier.
Sommelier.
Was that always the goal for you? Was that your dream job, or there was something else? And then tell me the story of how you got into this, kasi hindi naman yan uso sa atin eh.
Yes, that's true.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, it was never a part of my plan as a youngster.
Yeah.
In fact, I must start with saying that I live my life not really with a template of or a plan. I mean, I didn't really plan out my life that way because I am such a believer that to really live meaningfully and purposefully, uh, you really have to be detached from such a template because that's the only time you can really
I
allow
agree.
the God spirit in your life. And I think I learned that in many ways through many experiences, even as a youngster growing up in Tondo, because what happened in my life is really a series of again happenstances and random encounters with people and
Love it.
opportunities. Perhaps the seal that I had was that I knew when an opportunity is positive,
Yeah.
and I
Mhm.
learned how to surround myself with people who will enable me, who will
Yeah.
support me.
Yeah.
And just because my GPS is really rooted on a degree of authenticity, like I always want to be,
Your
who I
instincts.
exactly.
Instinct. Yeah.
So I also learned in life that, the more you chase your dreams, the more you run after opportunities, you are likely going to be surrounded by people
I love
who
it.
are,
Yes.
who are really not going to put you on the track. And
Yes.
so, because again, a degree of self awareness and authenticity, I also know how to take myself out of that situation. Like if I know, okay, these relationships are not genuine, these people are really not supporting my ethos, my personal ethos, what I really stand for, then I
Yeah.
know how to get out of situations like that. But I've always been guided by purpose, like seeking my purpose and my meaning in life, not
Yes.
always after worldly things. I was
Mhm.
never the person who would always think of kikita ba ako dyan,
Right.
yayaman ba ako dyan, because I live,
High
in
five,
poverty.
sister. High five to that. You lived where? In
I live as a, I started very poor, right? And when I
yes.
came to Canada at 19 years old, I didn't have my family with me. I didn't even have my immigration status. So I started as a live-in caregiver. And I did live in caregiving for over a decade.
Mm.
And because I was taking care of very influential people, very affluent families,
Yeah.
who were drinking wines normally, typically, with their meals,
Yeah.
and they had cellars and they had roots in Europe.
Hmm.
I That was luck for me. I really appreciated that I was able to find my first access, to wines.
Yeah.
I heard the stories. I heard the stories of the wine regions from these people, and
Yeah.
so when my final client passed away, and this was on the 14th year of providing professional care to Canadians, I thought, you know what, I want to shift to another industry. And the next industry will be something that will be about the enjoyment of life while at the same time, you know, finding meaning in it.
Yeah. I have to take a pause because you just verbalized everything. Kaya tayo magkaibigan, Arlene eh. You
That's true.
verbalized everything that I have stood for in my life as well. But this is not about me. This is about you, my dear. So let's continue. So you took,
So when my final patient passed away,
yeah.
and we were so
Wait, you call them patient?
well, that's a professional way of but we live with them. I was a live-in caregiver. My husband provided care with me in a
Yeah,
home setting.
I see. I see. So it's like
And
PSW, personal service.
exact
Yes.
yeah, and we're certified.
Yeah.
But it was a different level of care providing because we live with them, and just because we live with very influential Canadians and very affluent families, it was also there's a degree of butlership, like being a butler.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to learn, of course, the finer things in life. You know, how to serve fine food, fine beverages,
Yeah.
how to converse with their very affluent guests as well. So, you know, Chiqui, I have to tell you, my life was really fascinating because as a care provider, I was able to meet many influential Canadians and serve them and cook for them. And it
Yes.
was really the way to my patient's heart. He loved me too
Right.
much because I was cooking a lot, like, you know, like a Filipino would cook for their
Yeah.
guests. Like there was always a feast.
Tender loving care
Exactly.
involved.
So
Yeah.
I became known for that more than, you know, known for, you know, being a healthcare professional. It's the
Right.
food that I was serving, and I was serving food with so much love and with so much passion, you know. Like
Yes.
if I cook a dinner, I would serve it on an upscale level, and there would be stories around the dishes that I would cook, and the guests would be so enamored by the stories, you know, and they would be like, you're so different from all the other care providers we met in Canada.
Yes. Ang
And
swerte
because
nila.
yeah, and because,
Swerte
you know,
nila.
I studied mass comm, so there was a few units for
Mm.
intended for French. So I could actually, at the time, you know, I had a degree of fluency of French. I'm bad now, but I was able to read, you know, from culinary books of French. You know, like I could actually really make sense of what I was cooking for them. So
Yes.
the stories were dynamite, and so my patients' friends would be so excited. It became like they feel so honored when they were invited by by my employer, right?
Right, right.
Um, so when we lost our final patient, you know, we thought it's time to move forward, tackle a different industry, and
Yeah.
run our own businesses. So, and even when we were
That's
doing
that's when
live
it's
in work,
yes. Yeah.
we were already running our own enterprises
Right.
because it was only commitment. It was love for our patient that we stayed for that long.
Right.
But they were, you know, they were very pleased with the service we gave the family, and they even encouraged us to operate our own businesses from home,
Of
and that's what
course.
we did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have a question here, if I may. Dolly is asking, I wonder if Arlene knows or has met the caregiver who Michael Bublé gifted a house to. She was a caregiver in Vancouver, BC, though. So
Oh,
probably not.
no, no, because I have been based in Toronto, but I
Oh,
think I
um,
read about that. And to tell you, frankly, I know of a lot of people. Some of them are my friends who have been very blessed, you know, to receive gifts from their employers.
right.
My best gift from my employer is the way he influenced our lives, and I
Yeah,
will always be grateful. It's
that's
nothing
priceless.
material,
Yes.
but it's the build-up of connections, Canadian connections that we earned through the years.
Yeah.
And remember, Chiqui, I started as a caregiver when, you know, I was very young.
It Yeah,
It
you
was
were
almost
baby,
like a developmental stage, you know,
right?
and I was really shaped into the person that I would become by the
Absolutely
families that I
true. Yeah.
serve. You
Yes.
know, I was hearing a lot of, for instance, stories of Holocaust, right? Those
Mm-hmm.
things I would hear regularly because I live with Jewish families.
Mm-hmm.
And it really taught me, aside from, you know, intergenerational skills, because, you know, you if you have to live with the elderly clients you're taking care of, you need a good degree of intergenerational skill, right? And I learned that. But I
Yes.
think beyond that, what I learned is really to understand and to appreciate the multiculturalism
Yeah.
factor, right, in Canada, which I really admire.
Mm-hmm.
um, but also how to make sense of those stories and how those stories can actually shape who you are. And I think that sort of became a training ground for me. You know, I learned that if this could happen in that time, that could happen again. And how could we always become instrumental to, you know, defending the society that we have, protecting it, and being, instruments of social justice. So it was my caregiving tenure, which lasted for over a decade, was really the training ground for me, and it really shaped the person that I have become.
Yeah. And as Mary Ann said, impressive and nakaka-proud naman po ang service nyo sa mga patients nyo. That's true, Mary Ann. Arlene, I'm very happy that you got parang nanalo ka ng loto in terms of having an employer who not only employed you but supported your dreams and taught you and inspired you to become who you are now. But can you share how you, because it's not all roses and rainbows, right? There were times when I'm sure you had challenges. So for the benefit of our, because I have a lot of PSW friends as well, and Rina is one of them right there, and she said very inspiring story. How did you handle the difficult?
It
How
was
did you
really,
cope with it, or what would you do to recharge yourself?
well, to start, it was one of the most challenging things I've ever done in my life, because again, I was very young,
Yeah.
and it was not like I had choices then,
Mm-hmm.
when I started my life in Canada, because again, I didn't have my immigration status at that time, and I didn't have my family. I had no friends, and it was again a divine intervention when you meet people. I At that point I met Filipinos who influenced my path. I landed on a job that was supposed to be just for respite, like, when Filipinos would work three jobs, and at the end of it they would say, "Oh, masakit na yung likod ko, masakit na yung ulo ko."
Mm-hmm.
And people would my those people who became, my friends, they were like, "Okay, kung ano yung di na namin kaya, sa'yo namin ibibigay."
Mm-hmm.
And it was one of those, yung bigayan lang na pag-respite,
Mm-hmm.
that really led me to these people. But again, Chiqui, I think the most important thing that I want people to understand is that it is because I genuinely cared, and I fell in love with the people that I took care of, because we were already successful in our businesses. Some people, especially sponsored live-in caregivers, would just leave.
Yeah.
And
Trabaho
my husband,
lang, trabaho lang.
trabaho lang.
Mm-mm.
Um, my husband and I stayed for over a decade, and there was no purpose related to immigration
Mm-hmm.
anymore. And I mean, I was never sponsored by my client in the first place, so I never had to do live-in work. But it was also because, starting in Canada, wala kasi ako matirahan noon eh. And when my patient realized I was so generous with my time, they wanted to reward me. And I remember one night cooking Chinese food for them. I explained to him it was actually the other way around. You're actually the one, helping me because I don't have a place to stay. And so that's why whenever I do a few hours, I would stretch that for a 24-hour or a 48-hour stay, helping them, even if I didn't have to do the job, even if
Right.
didn't have to do the household chores, because I didn't have any place to go.
Right.
And again, those are when you have genuine intentions of, from the purest intentions you have, I think you also attract positive energy. And
Absolutely true. Yes.
some people would notice that. They would know it if it's
Yes.
genuine, they would know if it's fake. And I learned to really, give back.
Mm.
I think that's why I stayed. It's very Filipino cheeky. Some
Yeah.
Filipinos may say, "Oh, that's wrong." That's ancient. When you feel a sense of gratitude or utang na loob. But
Mm.
there was also again a degree of self awareness. I was always confident
Yeah.
with caregiving
Yeah.
because I've done an excellent job doing it professionally.
Yes.
I became certified, I studied, I spoke French and read French for my clients. So there was always honor. And when
Mm-hmm.
I do the work that many Filipinos do, I did it so passionately, and in such a very professional degree that I earned respect.
Ayan,
And
ha?
you know.
Children listening,
So
learn.
I was also the kind of caregiver who would also say no if I knew that it doesn't support the purpose, or
Mm,
because again I researched about the care that was required. One of the most challenging care to be provided was, of course, dementia care, when you have to provide for Alzheimer's disease patients. And I took care of Alzheimer's disease patients. I
mhm.
lived with them. It's different when you're doing it on a live out basis, but I
Right.
lived with them.
Oh my
So,
goodness.
and doing that for over a decade, it could hurt you mentally.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I've heard stories of how you get emotionally affected by it.
exactly, and you could suffer from caregiver
How did you
dementia too.
self-care? How did you do your self-care?
I have to give credit to Raymond, my husband, first, because
Mm,
first of all, it's different when you're doing it on your own. It's another story when you're doing it with a partner. And my husband, of course, was the first person I would give credit to, because it was always a partnership. In everything we did, in
yun.
business, in life, we always share this beautiful partnership. And when you know how to surround yourself with the right people, it really helps you. And it's not just all the it helps you attain your ambition or that, but it helps you mentally, right? Can you imagine doing live and work with all the stresses of caregiving,
Yeah.
and you're so burnt out, in your life, and you don't get encouraged by the person you're living with under the same roof. My husband and I took the caregiving years of our lives, share the work together, but it was also a time for us to bond, and that really shaped the relationship we have. And one of the most touching things we learned from the couple we took care of, who really influenced us, was that you will never love each other the same way. Nobody can love the same way, all your life. But it's okay, because beyond love is commitment. And it's something that you can metricize, it's something that you can measure. If you don't love the person anymore, think of the best thing about that person, the best memory,
Yeah.
linger on it,
Yeah.
and then commit to staying. And I think that value in life really shaped us, because we are just the kind of staying people. We have longevity with relationships. We stayed with our clients. We know how to build genuine relationships, and it really served us very well in life.
Yeah. Wow. Um, like Mary Maan said, you're very blessed to have a supportive partner, supportive husband. And I agree with you. It really depends on who you're partnering up with. Kasi kung wala kang suporta, and I've learned that here in Canada, Arlene, that
That's
you
true.
really
Very true.
need to pick people who will be
Oh,
in your
very true.
team. Yeah. So, side mention to my Charina, who is helping me in this podcast. Charina, thank you, Chaween. She has been my writing partner for almost 10 years now. And now we have come up with this podcast to share with other people. And I am just so fascinated. Arlene, you are so eloquent. You're a teacher too, right? You're
um
so
Yes, well, we used to operate one of the first caregiver training centers, which was TESDA accredited.
yeah.
We operated in Caloocan City, and we used to operate a major home care agency in Toronto. So what we did was, we were educating people, but at the same time we were training them very specific to the care plan of
Mhm.
my clients, my Canadian clients. And so there was a lot of teaching involved.
Yeah.
Like, say for instance, if the client has Eastern European um, background, I have to make sure that I teach them how to cook uh, foods, dishes, and how to manage the household in such a way that would really cater for very specific cultural needs. And
Yeah.
so I am a master of Jewish food, by the way, because
Yeah.
I served a lot of Jewish families, and a lot of them are very influential Jewish families of Toronto. And I learned a lot from them in terms of, how to run your business well, how to
Yeah.
make sure, you take care of sustainability, because that's what they're great at, Chiqui. Their
Mm-hmm.
businesses are
I
really some of the
impeccable.
most solid ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I am a teacher in many ways, and I
Yeah.
think that's why I returned to the Philippines as well. It's primarily because of my passion to teach. I am back in the Philippines because I want to teach more young Filipinos in the trade who really don't have the money to access the caliber of wine education I was able to access. Um,
Mm-hmm.
because you need a lot of money to pursue this kind of career. You likely
Mm-hmm.
spend more on it than make money out of it.
Yeah.
And so, and we are not a vineyard country yet.
Yet.
I mean,
But
not
is it
yet.
possible to plant grapes in
Um, oh
Tagaytay,
yes, we
Batangas?
already have we already have a few vineyards here.
Yeah.
We have several vineyards already. In fact, in La Union, in Marinduque, in the southern side of the Philippines.
So you're a
Um,
farmer now.
I deal with I think it's my focus now is more on recognizing, studying the potential of different regions in the Philippines
Mm-hmm.
where we can likely grow Vitis vinifera, because the problem here now is that although we have people investing in vineyards now, particularly in the northern side of Luzon, they have invested on table grapes, and they're different from wine grapes. And
Mm.
being the widow that I am more interested in growing grapes that can really make the fine wines that can, earn respect
Mm.
of the world connoisseur.
So hindi,
So
wait, Arlene, grapes is not just grapes. There's grapes for wine and there's grapes for table grapes.
exactly,
You can't
yes.
turn all grapes into wine,
No, you can. I mean, every fruit you can ferment, and it will yield a fermented beverage.
but there
But
are
it's
better
the quality,
quality.
right?
Yes, yes.
Like, because I think it's a skipped opportunity for us, Chiki, because I do believe in the topographical potential of the Philippines, its geographical potential. We have everything that will make us a great wine producing country. Topographically, we're very similar to Italy. We have volcanic
Mhm.
soil, we have bodies of water because we're an archipelago of 7,100 islands. We
Mhm.
have everything. We have the waters, we have the mountains, we have the elevations, and we have very complex soils. So that's a skipped opportunity, because if we can grow and harvest Vitis vinifera,
So,
crops that
can you say that slower, please? Vitis
Vitis vinifera,
vinifera. That is the
yes,
scientific name of
for wine grapes,
wine
yes.
grapes.
So, you know, we can always grow wine grapes for wine production.
Yeah.
Now, the science is that we have to find, out of the over 10,000 grapes in the world, what grapes will yield the best quality in a particular region of the Philippines, and that is what I am here for. It's not just to you know this vignerons nowadays, this vineyard owners, for instance, in La Union, in Marinduque, they have the lands, right? And what they're coming out, what they're doing now more often is, they create these vineyards, and people get there to enjoy the aesthetic of the vineyards,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it's we're skipping the opportunity, because if we planted the right grapes, we can actually make great wines out of it. And that's what
So
I want to do.
that's a perfect segue to my actual question that I'm going to call the shiniest thing in Arlene's life right now. Is this the current passion for you right now, which is really establishing vineyards in the Philippines? Is that
Um,
the direction you're taking?
I think the biggest passion for me is to help create jobs for Filipinos, and that was also why we rushed. After when the pandemic was starting to ease down, we knew how many people suffered during the pandemic. We knew how many people lost their jobs,
Mm-hmm.
and just the variety of losses. People lost their families, so this is really a part of our healing journey as well, because I mentioned to you that during the pandemic we lost three members of our family in a matter of
Sorry.
14 months. We
I'm
lost
so
my
sorry.
sister-in-law, my father-in-law, and then my mother-in-law. And Raymond and I needed to be to stay on a healing journey together, because it's a different story when you just watch when you lost a loved one. But I think there's something very beautiful and very compelling when you take care of a person, your loved one. Say for instance, with my mother-in-law who suffered from pancreatic cancer, and we took care of her during the pandemic, because you couldn't take her to the hospital, right? And so, well, but we're professional caregivers, and so we took care of her. But it's also different when you're taking care of your own loved one compared to when you're just taking care of somebody who's really not related to you,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And it was a very unique experience, and it was very painful, when you watch your loved one go through um, the illness, and battling such illness. And
Mm-hmm.
so we felt that the moment we were able to travel, we really just wanted to stay in the healing journey together. And part of the healing process is also to help other people heal. And part of the healing process of many Filipinos now, they have to heal economically as well, right? Because they lost a lot of, many people lost their jobs. And we're not, you know, um, very big business people, but I believe in the power of small scale, small businesses. Um, Yun ang lagi ko sinasabi, no? What I appreciate in life now that is
Mm-hmm.
really touching and very inspiring. And I hope other people pause in their lives, especially people in other parts of the world who have the opportunities to help, is that in Canada, style ng mga entrepreneurs for you to sustain your business for many years is that you do all the work for, yourself, right? Para hindi ka magbayad ng trabahador, and then you can sustain your businesses. But in the Philippines, we feel like you're in a position to be life changing and not spend too much money on those, because mag-hire ka lang ng driver, ng kasambahay, mag-hire ka ng, you know, gagawa ng bookkeeping mo, or ng social media manager. These things we couldn't afford there when we were running our business there. And naisip ko dito, the impact in your life now that you can be life changing, it actually increases exponentially.
Yes.
And it's inspiring because makikita mo agad. Ako, ayokong magkaroon ng kasambahay, and I've always been independent. But then you realize, nagbayad ka ng isang tao to do one thing.
Yeah.
Binayaran mo ng pinasahod mo nakita mo na nakapagpaaral ng anak, or nakapagbili ng gamot ng tatay
Yeah.
niya.
Yeah.
These are the things. These are minor things. But
Yes.
it's to be life changing, you really don't have to be rich, right? You don't really have
Absolutely true.
to
Yes.
operate big enterprises. And
Yeah.
I think it is the gift, when you realize that you can be life changing. I
Yes.
see that as a gift. And
Um,
we
Arlene,
saw the impact.
you have a friend here, Rose J. Ocampo, who said, I'm just going to read it out loud for the podcast's sake. She is very encouraging. She's a very encouraging individual who helped and supported me build my career. I'll always be grateful that I got to know her. Hashtag amazing friend. That's from Rose
Thank you, thank you.
Ocampo.
She's like my sister.
Thank you
I
for that,
think
Rose.
that I'm so touched by that. I have to say that I have been the luckiest, being surrounded by people who really enable me, who really have supported me in life, and people like that, friends like that, like Rose. Um, I think the skill that again I learned in life is that I surrounded myself, because it can get very frustrating, especially in my industry, Chiqui. It's hard to find genuine people, no? And madali kang malito eh. Kapag, you
Same.
know, ang karera mo is nakabase sa socializing. Imagine that,
Mm,
imagine how
parang
susceptible you are.
showbiz.
Of course, of course.
Mhm.
It's hard to build deep relationships over alcohol, because you're the person you're with likely may be adoring you now, but because he's drunk, or you know what I mean. It's hard
Lasing
to
lang pala. Lasing lang
it's
pala.
hard exactly it's hard to create deeper relationships with
Yes.
with widows too, right?
But
but
it
but
is
I
possible. It is
Oh
possible.
yes. Oh
Yes.
yes. Like one of my
Especially
closest
with
friends,
people like you advocating for it.
because you would know. You would know. And I think
Yes.
siguro yun nga yung ano ko, yun sa training ko no sa buhay, that I live with people from different backgrounds, different
Yes.
cultures. I learned it. And ako, I also pinpointed many times in my life, Chiki, especially in
Mm.
Canada, when I could had been a victim of this, or had been used by this, or
Mm.
an advocacy that doesn't really represent my ethos. But
Mm.
I've always been the person who would know, when to say no, or when I would pause, and
Your
be conditioned.
boundaries have your boundaries always been this clear?
I think it
Or you
stems.
need to
It's
develop?
rooted from. I think it's
Tondo
rooted
girl?
from authenticity, and pagiging tondo rin siguro yung tondo
The
girl,
Tondo girl.
because
Mhm.
when I was in college, kasi yung buhay ko ano siya parang very ironic siya from the start. Like I was very poor in Tondo, and then I lived in a mansion in La Vista in college, and I was sharing the apartment with very affluent colegialas, from exclusive schools, and they had
Mhm.
drivers, and I knew that they had that they were more privileged, than most people.
Yes.
And if you're a Tondo girl and you had to live with those people, you have two choices. You can fake it to make it, or you can be yourself. I decided I should be myself. So I was always comfortable with being genuine, with being real,
Yes.
because para sa akin kasi, you could only lie to a certain degree about who you are.
When's your birthday again?
January 24, it's
Aquarius.
Aquarius, right?
We're
January
10 days
24.
apart.
Just
January.
yes, yes, yes. But
Nice.
you're not Aquarius anymore kasi
Capricorn.
Capricorn ka na.
Oo, oo. Mababait talaga yung mga Aquarius eh. Mga January, sige. Isali ko na
Sa
sa
mga January, But
Mga
yes,
January. Wow. Wow.
and now I'm in my 40s, and I'm back in the Philippines,
Are you
and
gonna be staying there long? Is that gonna be like
um
your base?
again, I'm very clear with how I think of three places: Canada, Philippines, and Italy. Because that's basically the summary of my year, right? Like
Yeah.
I have to spend a few months in Canada, spend a few months in Europe, spend a few months in Asia. But when people ask me, I always tell them those three places are a big part of me. And I like to tell people that Canada is my true north. Um,
True north,
Italy,
literally.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes, it's my true north. And Philippines is my home, because it would always be, no matter, it's home here, you know what
Right.
I mean?
Puso, yes.
Um, and Italy is my sanctuary. It's my soul's respite. Like if I need to refresh, if I need to find myself again, I go to
I
Italy.
like that.
But Canada is what shapes the purpose, because
Right.
Canada reminds me that this is what a society can achieve, and if you are this, you can
Right.
give, you can spread
Right.
the love, and you can be life changing. I remember when I was a caregiver, I always adored the grandchildren of the the billionaires I was taking care of. They were billionaires, like they built the economy of Canada, but their
Mm.
grandchildren would go to developing countries, Africa, and and those places, and they would
Mm.
do their mission work. I
Yeah.
said to myself,
Immersive experience.
exactly.
Yes.
But these were very down to earth families, right? And
Yes.
I always tell my husband that, how come they could let go of their children, of their grandchildren? I know
Mm-hmm.
many Filipinos who couldn't let go of their kids for not even for a week. The kids were so pampered, right? Um, so, and even more so now, I'm realizing that, like, how could these people let go of their children? So, and it takes a lot of faith, like these people must have believed that there's kindness in the world. They believe in certain principles. Why would you send your loved ones to developing countries to do mission work? and
Yeah.
and now in my 40s, I believe in that more so. I believe that the reason why I can be this giving, and I can, I can move back to the Philippines and do this work now, is
Yeah.
because Canada shaped me, helped me, you know, to believe in that with kindness you can be life changing. So I always thank Canada when friends tell me, "Oh, iniwan mo ang Canada," and I always say, "No, actually, this is my giving honor to Canada.
I
I wouldn't
agree.
be this giving were it not to all the blessings, that Canada gave me, and how blessed we are. We're
Yes.
so blessed that we have to give back, right?"
Truly, truly. We couldn't have picked a better place to immigrate to, in my opinion. Sorry, USA. Sorry, Dolly. But Canada tops them all. I don't know. I've never been to the rest, but I know we're pretty good here. We have a question from Rena. Will you integrate all your past passions, caregiving, cooking, with your current passion of wine?
Yes, it's there. They've always been integrated.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever I do, even if I do businesses, based on different industries, I don't see my businesses apart from each other. I always look at them just like one unit. And again, it is rooted to authenticity. I don't like, if I say, for instance, the best example is I did the skincare, Fraiche
Mm.
Vinotherapy. Um, well,
How do
some
you
people,
say it? That's always the tongue twister for me. Fresh,
Fresh
fresh,
Vinotherapy.
fresh,
Yes,
fresh.
yes, Vinotherapy and
Vinotherapy,
Enocosmetics. Well,
therapy.
skincare, like, so some
Yeah.
of my colleagues are like, skincare. Well, you're into food and beverage, right?
Mm,
Why skincare? But
mm,
again, I don't ever do. Perhaps it may happen. I don't. We don't have 100% control over our lives. But the way I do things is that I always see my everything I do as one component, and they all have to be harmonious to each other. I could do skincare like that, but it's because it's still based on grapes. It's still based on wine grapes, so
exactly.
it's still a representation
Tell
of the wine.
tell the viewers, Arlene, what the skincare line is, please.
Oh, okay. I'm a good promoter too. I have it back
Go for
here.
it. So, yeah,
So,
fresh,
Frosh is
fresh.
yes, it's the business that I built. Just really being okay with discomfort and being laughed at, because it started with sort of like a joke to my colleagues. That we would always talk about, oh, how's your Philippine market? Are you able to sell wines to Filipinos? Filipinos are really not wine drinkers. There's always that like a barrier. Like, people always think that as a wine professional, um, I will not sell wines to Filipinos because they prefer beers over wines. And
Mm,
so, again, being okay with discomfort. I don't ever feel discriminated, when people start thinking of me like that. Can you really sell wine? Sort of can minimize you, right? But then again, I started with a joke. I was like, well, you know what? If they don't drink it, they can apply it on their skin, because I realized that the most potent form of resveratrol, which is the antioxidant for cell renewal, you can
mm,
find on wine grapes. After all,
mm.
oldest vines in the world are Vitis vinifera, right? They don't die. They're able to renew their lives. It's because
That
of
is true.
resveratrol. So when we say
Mm-hmm.
old vine wines, I mean these
Okay.
wines. I mean some of them are thousands of
Where?
years.
So tell,
And
promote. Where do we get the fresh?
okay, so well, we have a partnership with some spas here, but we also sell that in Toronto, where we have a store in Little Manila, and we ship
Wilson and Bather.
wherever. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
but we're actually rebranding it and wanting it to be more commercial in the Philippines now
Yeah.
that we're more based here. So
Mm-hmm.
we're launching Charot. Charot is Charot is what it's called. Charot is
Charot.
charcoal and carrot that's based on it's very potent with
Is it
resveratrol from
yours?
yes
Charot is
it's
your brand?
yes. To be
How
honest with you,
cute.
it is actually a protected word. Like we apply for intellectual property right over the word charot. So I always joke at my friends because they love to say charot, charot. And my joke is that whenever you use the word charot, you have to pay me at least a peso for that.
Chawing, hindi ba your name is Charot? My buddy here, co-creator, producer, that's her nickname, Charot.
Oh,
Word of the day. But
but
what
it's
does
an urban lingo. It's an
it is?
urban
What does
lingo
it mean
here.
in the Filipino lingo again? Charot means
It's sort of
malandi,
like
flirt,
a joke. No, but
maharot.
we're actually saying charot. It's more like a joke, like not to be taken
Char.
seriously. Yeah,
Yung
char.
char.
A
Okay,
biro
okay,
lang,
okay.
right? But
Char.
more on a maharot level. So actually,
Maharot.
the tagline of charot is seryosong sabon para sa gandang hindi biro. So
Pakiulit. Seryosong
seryosong sabon because
sabon.
it's a very serious soap. You're actually using the most serious of all cosmetic component,
Okay.
which is resveratrol. It's the most expensive compound as well. And
Okay.
so it's actually good to say seryosong sabon because it's really very serious.
Uh-huh.
Para sa gandang hindi biro. So
Nice. Who came up with that? You. You came up with that.
I have
You're
many
so good with
jokes in my
words.
life.
Ayan, sinulat na ni Chawing. Thanks, Chawing Charot. Seryosong sabon para sa gandang hindi biro.
Yes.
When can we expect that in the market?
So we are to launch that in another month. So
In
you'll
a
find
month.
many of those soaps in certain markets in the Philippines because we're
Uh-huh.
going to target several regions. Pero
So
mag-iyo
many.
online. Iyo online din yan.
And online as well. Yeah. Masubukan nga yung charot na yan. I will
Oh,
be
but
one of the first.
so many Canadians have tried that already. Because we have been selling it for a few
It's
years
made of
already.
charcoal and carrot.
Yes, pero makikita mo talaga yung mga grapes sa sabon. As in, you will see the grapes.
Wow. Wait, there's grapes too?
Yeah, it's the base of all our
The products.
cosmetic
Makes
skincare
sense.
products.
Yes,
Yeah.
that makes
Because
a lot of sense.
what I do, Chiqui, I source the pomace. Pomace is what's the byproduct of the wine grapes. When we press the wine grapes to make wines,
Yeah.
imagine mo, anong gagawin mo dun sa mga seeds?
Yeah.
Ang mahal-mahal ng grape seeds, di ba? Grape seed extract, ginagamit na grape seed oil because they are so
Grapeseed
prime.
oil. Yeah,
Very
yeah. I use
creamy.
that for cooking. Yes.
Yeah. But I happen to be housed in some of the most historic wineries of the world. So I get to see a lot of these. I get to access a lot of these. And more
Correct.
importantly, I saw in my two eyes whether or not they came from the best, the best vines, the
Right.
best Vitis vinifera. So syempre napipili ko yan kung ano yung alam ko talaga na magbibigay sa akin ng potency ng resveratrol.
Ayan,
So,
may buyer ka na. When can I buy that here in the US? Sabi ni Kate.
yeah, so you can message me and I will happily make arrangement for
Yes,
shipping.
message you at the Food and Wine
Wine Guru.
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 Let's put that
Yes.
here so you guys can see the solo link. The food and wine guru on Facebook, Instagram, and everywhere else.
Yeah, so I have a sample here, but I don't know
Yeah,
like if
there
you
it
can
is, a
see,
bar soap,
you can
Rina.
see the fragments.
Mm-hmm.
So because it has carrots, so it's orangey, but what you will see are the specks. Kasi yan yung mga seeds and mga skin na kapag
Yes.
prines namin, dinudurog yan, ginagrind siya. So yun yung source ng resveratrol. But really, it does magic to
Ang
people.
ganda
That's
nga ng
why,
skin mo, Arlene. I-close
and
up nga
that's
natin yan.
well, lagi ako
I-close
under
up.
the sun, di ba? Lagi ako under the sun. So,
Oo. But of course, it's a duh question, but do you use your own products all the
oh,
time?
yes. Alam mo, hindi ako meticulous sa skin. Like, I don't really wear a lot of, because I travel so much, right? And
Yeah.
para akong batang backpacker, konti lang ang
Yeah.
pwede mong dalhin, right? So, but this
Yes.
is also what I learned. In the wine regions of Europe, ginagamit talaga yung mga remainder, yung mga byproducts na yan to wash their hands, to,
Aha.
they use that on their elbows.
Para
So,
maging smooth yung mga
so yun yung
mga
actually, we really make use of the pomace.
how
So,
interesting. So walang tapon, sabi ni Maan. Walang
exact,
tapon kasi grapes.
walang
Oh,
tapon.
we're all excited to try it. Ah.
I'm very excited as well
But
because
this is such an
people.
interesting conversation. See, we've been an hour in the podcast. It doesn't feel like it at all.
Well, you're coming home, or aren't you coming home? Aren't you making a
It keeps
trip?
changing. It keeps changing. I don't know what's going on, but if and when I do, I'm definitely going to visit you.
I hope the restaurant will be up and running by then.
Okay, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that before we say goodbye. The Olive Rose Farmhouse.
Farmhouse. Yes.
The Olive Rose Farmhouse. You're the chef,
So
the storyteller, the singer, dancer. What else?
the storytelling component is very important, over
Mhm.
being the chef and being the sommelier of the place, because I think what really defines this new restaurant in Asugu, Batangas, is that it's a terroir focused menu. Terroir is basically
I'm so
a
happy I
Wino
said it
word,
correct. I'm
and
so
it
happy
means
I said it correct. Terroir. Yeah.
for
So what
for
does it
wine
mean?
So for wine professionals, we refer to it as the expression of the land, because as a wine professional, what you're trained to, especially as a sommelier, is to recognize the particular wine based on its expression. Dapat alam namin yan pag inamoy namin, visually, how it appears in the glass, inamoy namin, nilasahan namin. Doing that blind tasting method, the wine has to express itself, and we have to be able to decipher whether it's Cabernet Sauvignon or Merlot, Chardonnay, whatever, and not just to recognize what it is, but where it came from. Anong bansa yan, anong region, anong vineyard, just by
Okay.
doing the blind tasting. And what it does, what it allows us as wine professionals, is to evaluate the quality of the wines. Kasi kung magandang quality siya, dapat mahulaan ko.
Sandali,
Because,
sandali. Just from your palate, you can tell where it's
yes,
from, what
yes,
variety.
from
Isn't that
the,
really tongue insured?
I think that's,
You have to insure that. That's
it's,
the
yeah,
work.
I think I should know. But the thing is that it's science, Chicky, right? The best wines, they are great because they have expressions. And the expressions, para ding tao yan, Chiki, di ba? How beautiful people will be if we have our own expressions.
Exactly.
Trademark mo. Ikaw,
Right.
Chiki, alam ko ikaw ka. I will never be confused because I know, just by hearing this word, trademark mo, signature mo.
Correct.
Wines of the best quality are the same. They have
Mm-hmm.
their individual
Or
expressions.
expression. Wow.
And the
Never
expressions, you
seen.
will like to
Lahat
refer
kasi
to
ng
that
wine sa akin, pare-parehong lasa eh.
pare-pareho. The
Oo.
expressions we
I have the
have a
Promdi
wine.
palette.
No, well, I have the Tondo palette,
I have
right?
Promdi palette. Sorry, go ahead. So the
Um,
expression.
we refer to that as terroir. which is
Terroir.
um
Terroir.
yeah, it is the collection of all the expressions, how the land expresses itself in the wine, the climate and everything. These are
Uh-huh.
expressions.
Wow.
And I
Okay.
realized that, you know, pag ikaw restaurateur ka, chef ka, ang gusto mo lang, ang competition lang is naka-base sa sinong mas masarap. Sino ang mas masarap na gumawa ng bulalo sa Tagaytay and that. Well, I
Mm-hmm.
want to deviate from that fixation on sinong mas masarap. Because masarap is actually problematically metricized. Kasi iba-iba naman ang masarap. Ang definition ng masarap, you know, may be different with you and different
Exactly.
sa akin. Ang maalat
Yes.
sa'yo, hindi maalat sa akin.
Yes.
But I think the more objective way to validate the goodness of a product is by understanding its expression, whether or not it expresses the stories of the land, whether or not it expresses the story of the geography, of the particular geography of a locality or a region. And Olive
Ibang
Rose is such that
level.
we are focusing on the expressions of Batangas
Yeah.
and its communities, its
Yes.
topography. So it's a
I
passion
am
project.
I am so excited. Ibang level, ika nga.
I think it's
Ibang level.
it
It's
is
not just to
rooted
get
from
full. Hmm?
kasi mababaw na yung kapag ang level ng fixation mo as a chef or as a restaurant owner is kailangan mas masarap. Parang mababaw na sa akin yung ganun, you know.
Mm-hmm.
In my life
Mm-hmm.
experience, it's more again being more meaningful. When
Yes.
can we make a dining experience more meaningful? Because kapag in-encourage mo ang isang tao to get to know what makes up a particular dish. If you tell them the story right where they are seated, having, say, a bulalo, and you tell them, okay, etong beef na to galing dito sa farmer na ganito. Etong gulay na to galing to sa farmer na ganito. Then the dining experience becomes meaningful.
Yes.
Then the superstar of the restaurant is no longer the chef, but the farmers, the people who, you know, who tend for the lands, the people who brought the fish into the kitchen of the restaurant.
That's beautiful, Arlene. That is really a different level of creating things in the world. I am just beyond impressed at this point. I thought I was impressed by you over the few years that I've known you, but thank God you said yes to this podcast
So,
interview.
do
This
I
has to
deserve a
have a
song
part
from you
two.
now?
Habang may ubo, hindi pa pwede. And I need to duet with your mom.
Oh,
I need
yes,
to
yes,
duet
yes. You
with
know, my mom was so kilig last night. Like, I was telling her, and she's so kilig, you know.
mga
She
kaibigan,
couldn't.
Arlene's mom has a favorite song to sing in the karaoke, which is what?
How
The
did you know?
Yes. Um, merong question akong nakita dito sandali. Can you tell us the best wine for you? From Maan again. Maan,
The
kota ka
best
na.
wine? Okay. This is a non-professional definition, no? And this is what I'm teaching Filipinos now. Never focus on the more snobbish definitions of wines. The best wine for you is is the wine that you will share meaningfully with whoever is seated with you sharing that bottle. It doesn't
Ayun.
have to be expensive. It can be the cheapest wine from LCBO or from the wine store in SM. It doesn't have to be pricey. But if that bottle is meaningful enough because you're
Mm,
able to share stories, because drinking a glass actually perks you up and makes you
yeah,
open up a bit,
yeah.
then that
Then that's
experience
the
is
best.
the best.
Yan. So it's the meaning. So, ano, Dolly, the best wine is the one you like best, according to Dolly. Yes. And Maan says, thank you for that answer. And she's laughing too. You're welcome. Dali.
But
What?
on a professional note, Chiqui, because in Filipinos, no, they always ask me,
Hmm?
ayaw namin kasi may experience kami, isang inom pa lang, bitter, so na-turn off na. And so that
Mm-mm.
actually, that discouraged the exploration because
Yeah.
uminom ka agad ng mapait. Ang palate mo has to evolve. It has to develop, right?
Mm-hmm.
So never ever shock your palate with something that's already full-bodied, right? Like wines, for
Mm.
instance, like Cabernet Sauvignon or Malbec, or I mean even Tanat, yung mga
Yes.
fuller-bodied examples ng wines. Kapag by mistake ininom mo agad and hindi ka talaga drinking regularly, naturally,
Turn off
turn off
ka.
ka sa
Oo.
tannins, no, sa bitterness. So I always advise people, if you are really serious about starting or exploring, wine appreciation, nag-i-start ka pa lang, then invest on lighter bodied wines, friendly wines that you can enjoy na
I
hindi mo
like
kailangan of
rosé.
so say for
Is that a
instance,
wine? That is a wine, right?
it's a
Rosé.
style of wine, rosé. It's a style of wine.
Oh, what does
But
that mean?
many, so
Style of wine.
well, some people would refer to it as blush or pink because wala siya
Yes.
masyadong coloration ng red because
Right.
the wines are produced with very little, minimal skin contact. The color comes from the skin kasi, di ba? So kapag
Mm-hmm.
minimize mo yung skin contact ng juice doon sa skin, naturally, hindi siya mag-yield ng ganong kapulahan. So that's how we produce, one way of producing rosés.
Yeah.
But if you are just starting to learn to drink,
Explore. Mm-hmm.
slower pace, mag-start ka sa mga lighter body. Normally, when you look at the bottle, start with nothing over 10 or no,
Percent.
push mo na
Is
kaunti,
it a
12.
percent?
Oo, 12 ABV, so 12% alcohol. So
Okay.
kapag nag-over ka na dyan, medyo maasiwa ka na kung hindi ka sanay sa
Yes.
tannin, sa pait,
Yes.
right, sa bitterness. So that's a great way to start.
Yeah.
You will find, let's say Filipino, they love Moscato, no? I realized
The
now that
sweeter ones. Yes. Because we have
yeah,
some sweet palates.
favorite na maraming tao around me, Moscato. And there's nothing wrong with that, but
Yes.
a better way of enjoying Moscato is to understand that it's a dessert wine, right? And if you pair it with something, like a dessert a plate of dessert,
Mm-hmm.
it actually improves your appreciation of Moscato. But a lot of
Mm.
Filipinos love Moscato kasi nga, very easy drinking. But there are
Mm-hmm.
other wines na easy drinking. There are
Mm.
many Rieslings, for instance. I love
Rieslings.
one of my favorite white grapes is Riesling. And
Mm.
I see a lot of bottles. In Canada, of course, we don't have any problem assessing Riesling. In the Philippines, I'm able to find some as well. Pinot Grigio, if you're wanting an Italian wine.
I hear that
Um,
a lot. Pinot Grigio.
yes.
That's white.
Uh, when you look at the grape, it's actually kind of grayish. It's a
Grayish.
white grape.
Yeah.
But it's many of that are particularly produced without much alcohol. So
Mm.
uh, Pinot Grigio is one. It's easy drinking. The more complex ones are really delicious, but minsan mataas na yung alcohol.
Yes.
And with the reds, Beaujolais in Canada for our Canadian friends,
Mm-hmm.
um, you'll find a lot of that in Ontario
We
and
won't be
elsewhere.
able to spell that. Paki-spell. Showing Beaujolais. What?
Beaujolais,
B-E-A-U.
Beaujolais. Yes.
Okay, that's a beginner wine.
Yes. I'm particularly mentioning Beaujolais because I happen to find a lot of great Beaujolais in the
Mm.
Canadian no, wine stores. In the
What's
Philippines,
mm,
marami rin naman if you're at the right city.
what's a wine that won't make me turn red? Because I think I have a wine allergy.
I think it's the I
So
don't know yung
red.
yeah. Try to find um, biodynamic organic wines. Kasi mas less yung
Organic
niyan, yung sulfur
wine.
niyan sa yes. So it's the sulfites that would cause the redness, right?
Hmm.
It's really not the
It's
alcohol
not the
most of the time.
alcohol.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's
yeah.
why when you find you are reacting to the sulfites. So generally the biodynamic organic wines will have, most of them will claim they don't use that, right?
Yes.
And so when you try finding a bottle, yun yung titingnan mo. Meron section, di ba, biodynamic, organic.
Okay.
So that should be helpful to you kapag bumibili ka ng wines for yourself.
You've given us so much information. Amor said it perfectly when she said, ang sarap mong maging kaibigan, ang daming learning and wisdom sa lahat ng level.
And I will cook for you and I will pour wines. I am really
And tell you a story while you're eating the food.
my friends are spoiled because
I
can you imagine,
know,
like when you have a
truly.
friend who can cook for you and who will spoil you with wines?
I know. I can't
I
wait
am
to
the
visit
best
the
friend you'll
farmhouse.
ever have.
I will not contest that. That is absolutely true. And I have proven that through the years, Arlene. Thank you so much.
And likewise,
I think
Chiqui.
this is the best longest podcast. I can't say best because Fe and Leia will get mad. It is now 9:51 where I am. Arlene, before
Yes.
before you leave this space, can you please delight us with your words of wisdom? What's the advice for people who are looking for their passion? Yung natataranta, I don't know what, the crossroads that I was talking about. Go.
I think you start with your why, right? Very importantly, whatever you do, you start with asking the why. Why are you doing it? Because that leads you to your purpose. And once you have deciphered that, um, you always want to have like a drawing board. You want to plan it out, and in your journey, you want to make sure that you are surrounded by people who will be your enablers, your supporters. And don't
That's
get confused. Don't
yes.
get confused. Many relationships, many things that we want in life are not meant for the long term, and sometimes they just are there for distractions. So when you really find when you are focused on something that is purposeful, you're actually thinking something long term. And so you want to build on that. You want to surround yourself with the energy of people who will be there, who will linger long enough to support you.
Yeah.
And always be kind, compassionate, and grateful. I'm
That's
telling
the
you,
secret.
that's all that I'm doing really. Yun lang ang ano ko. Yun lang lagi ang ano ko, mantra ko in life.
Yes.
And hindi pa naman tayo hindi pa tayo naliliko sa buhay. And
Absolutely true.
yun lang,
Yes,
just be
sister,
kind.
absolutely true. Because that's where the God energy, the Panginoon lives in the kindness and in the giving and in caring for other people. Well, that's what I've learned in my life anyway. That's how I found you.
That's
Because
how I found you.
we continued to choose kindness over all the rest of the
You know what I
negative
realized before
emotions.
we end this?
Hmm.
That is really the magic of the song How Did You Know? I was listening to it
Hmm.
the other
The
day,
song
and I
written by
thought,
Miss Cecile Azarcon.
How Did You Know is such is a song of gratefulness. When you're in love, and many people are in love, but they
Mhm.
don't pause to really think, to really linger on that feeling. Can you imagine if you just discover a new love in your life, and if you linger on it and you ask yourself, what is this feeling about, and what makes me love this person? I think that Cecile, when she wrote that song, it was based on that experience, because it is such a song of gratefulness, Chiqui. I don't know if you realize it about the song that
I
song of
realized many,
yours,
many wonderful things about that song.
right? That
Gratefulness,
Yeah,
allowing
I
other
was
people to be a part of your life. Kasi tayo mga
exactly.
strong women, the strong women mentality is, I can do it
I
alone.
can,
No, no, you
yes,
need other
yes,
people.
yes.
Yeah, I needed
Yes.
someone like you
When
in
you
my
can say,
life.
like you really need this person in your life,
Yeah,
it's that's why I
and
said it's such a
appreciate.
song of coming from a place of
Thank
humility and,
you.
and gratefulness.
I'm so lucky to have been granted that song. it's really the key to a lot of things. It's one of the main keys how we met. Because your mom pala is how did you know karaoke queen.
Yes, karaoke.
I've yet to hear it live. I've heard the taped version. I've heard the you've
But she
let me
sings
hear.
it really well. She sings it really
I
well. I
want to
think
hear
it
it
was
live. I want to hear it live. So, meron pa ba tayong mga na-miss na ang daming comments and questions? But I think we gotta let Arlene go because now it's 9:56 in the
and they can
morning.
always message me. I love
Let us
receiving
know how
messages
best to
from
contact you
people.
once again, Arlene, please.
So on Instagram, it's at the Food and Wine Guru.
Mm-hmm.
I also have another platform. It's called at Pinay Som, Pinay
Pinay,
SOMM, short for Pinay Sommelier.
SOMM, sommelier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So either in both platforms you can send you can private message me.
Awesome. Chowing in the green room, do you have any final words or questions for our guest? While I cough my lungs out here. Ay, nawawala si Charina. Okay. So, like I said in the beginning, Arlene, I couldn't have picked better company in this condition. What a refreshing and energizing presence you are. Like most of
I
our
pray that you feel better. I
I
pray that you
will
feel
feel better, especially after this conversation. And uy, babalik ka ha?
Of course, yes. Oh my
Babalik.
goodness, I will. I'm so excited to be back in Canada in
Yeah. And babalik ka sa podcast. I mean,
Of course, why not?
yeah.
Like we cannot cover everything
There's
about
so
wine
many
in
things that I want to
one
ask.
podcast.
You're so knowledgeable on so many topics. So I think this needs a part two next Wednesday ulit. Kung
It will
ma-record
always be my
natin si
pleasure,
Arlene.
Chiqui. And I will not say no to you ever. So
Thank you. So,
but
friends,
thank you
you.
for having me here, ha.
You're
I
very
really
welcome. It's our pleasure having you. And I'm having sepangs na nga if letting you go. I don't want to let you go anymore, but alas, all things must come to an end and I need to drink more medication. So,
and thank you everyone, ha. Ang daming may mga nag-message din sa akin, I think, personally.
mhm.
So thank you for staying with us today.
Thank you. Thank you. So, unending gratitude to Miss Arlene Oliveros. So, ladies and gents, let's give Arlene tons and tons of applause, please. I'm going to clap right here. And if you can put all the hearts and all the love in the comment section, we would appreciate that. Swing, 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 swing. So I shall see you again maybe next week. We will
I
ask
will see
Arlene
you
later.
again. I will see you
So
again.
enjoy your day, my sister.
Thank
Tell us about
you. Thank
her.
you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very
So
much.
much love. So much love. Thank
And good
you.
luck with this new venture in Tagaytay. I can't
Thank you
wait to
so
go
much.
there.
I feel positive and I'm so excited. If I could welcome you there in a few months, I would be so celebrating. Thank you, Chiqui.
I'm already there. Thank you. God bless you.
God bless you.
So,
Bye.
ladies and gents, that was Miss Arlene Oliveros. One more time, please. Applause, 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 applause for Arlene. Wow. Let me read some of your comments here. Punta tayo pag uwi mo ha. sabi ni sabi ni MKM, punta tayo pag uwi mo ha. Ha 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 ha. For sure. Gagawa tayo ng ano ha, ng kuha tayo ng what do you call it? Yung service bus. Punuin natin ng maraming mga abangers and artistas. Bulabugin natin si Miss Arlene Oliveros sa kanyang the Olive Rose Farmhouse. Jonah, thank you. Pagaling ka, Miss Chiqui. Thank you so much. Marlon, thank you for being here. I see you. Thank you, Pam. Rina, thank you so much. Raquel, and for all the questions, especially for those who have been asking such excellent, intelligent questions. Hindi nasagot, Dolly, hindi nasagot yung adobo and pancit peri. Huhulaan ko, rosé. Rosé lang ang alam ko. Rosé na lang ng rosé. Beautiful message. Thank you, ladies. Sabi ni Maan, I think Maan, you received the award for the most enriching and inspiring comments today. Beautiful message and mantra. Thank you, ladies, very much. Another enjoyable and informative, fun podcast. Congratulations, Miss Arlene, Miss Charina, and Miss Chiqui. Yay! That deserves a cheer. Yay! We loved it. Sabi ni Raquel, love it. And we love you. And Ron said, excellent episode. Thank you so much. I am so glad that you guys came and joined us today. And I am so happy that I did not choose to forgo this episode. Kaya kahit na medyo masama po ang pakiramdam, talagang, and I feel much better now, believe it or not, after having this conversation with my friend Arlene. Like Arlene said, I'm gonna echo what she said. If you are surrounded by the right people that care for you, genuinely love and care for you, it uplifts you and it gives you energy and it gives you the motivation to keep going. And the older I get, the more I realize how important. Hindi ba may kasabihan na surround yourself, the 5 people, imagine it, okay, my friends. Imagine who are the 5 closest people in your life right now, just right now. Okay, do you have it in your mind? If you look at those 5 people, and this I've learned from another teacher, I'm just sharing it back to you. If you look at the qualities of those 5 people that are closest to you, whether by choice or by circumstance, you will notice that that is how you are. That is how you behave in the world. That is how you make choices in the world. So it's so important na piliin yung tamang mga kasama sa buhay. Because really, we only really have room for, okay, if we're extra social and extroverted, maybe about 8 that are really, really close to us. The rest are just more like acquaintances. And, a friend of mine calls it the good time crew. Not a bad thing. It's good to have parties as well, but the closest ones to you. And that's my biggest takeaway from Arlene today. She has reiterated to me that it's very important to choose who we surround ourselves with. And it also goes, it goes without saying that if you notice that people are pulling you down or making you feel bad, and this is, I'm putting on my Ate Chiqui, Tita Chiqui hat on. If you notice that there are certain loved ones that are dragging you down, but you can't help it, you love them because they're your blood or they're very close to you, just minimize spending time with them. And I'm telling you that very, very seriously. Minimize. You don't have to cut them out of your life. You just need to, instead of spending the usual 6-7 hours a week with them, just spend 3 hours. Cut it short, because we do get affected by the people we surround ourselves with. Okay, so that is the biggest takeaway for me. And apart from that, the best wines are ones that bring the most meaningful conversations. Diba? Tama nga naman. The best anything will be the one that's most meaningful to us. And buti na lang, hindi tayo in a room na mahahawa ko kayo. Buti na lang merong barrier ng internet at ng computer. So kahit umubo-ubo ako dito, you're all still protected. I wish all of you health, wellness, meaningful conversations. And like I always say before I go, always, always, always follow your dreams. Surround yourself with the people that support your dreams. And always follow that. Sabi nga ni Miss Arlene Oliveros, your instincts, trust that instinct and develop that instinct that you have, because that will never lead you astray. It will always bring you to the right places. Yeah, people will say things and they will say, don't do that. Wala namang ano dyan, walang future, walang pera. But if your heart is saying, this is what you need to do, even if it's the most illogical thing in the world, it's not always about money. Right, guys? Never was and never will be about the money. It's about what brings you the most joy. And that's what dreams are. Brings you joy. So with that, my dears, thank you very much for joining me today. Episode 3. Maybe Arlene can join us again on episode 4. I don't know. I'll be completely honest with you. The person that was supposed to be for next week couldn't make it. So it's either I'll bring back Arlene or I will gather all of my closest friends to ask me questions. Para ako naman ang dadaldal ng mga kung anik-anik na mga sasagot na mga questions. That's how we roll. If you don't have a guest, so you be the guest. Or I can interview, we can ask questions back and forth. So I'll form a group of the closest people to me, and then we can talk about anything and everything, about Chiqui's stories, how it started, how the singing career, and then maybe we can sing. Sana magaling na ako next week so I can sing again, because I'm really, really, really excited to sing again. Okay, thank you for all the well wishes, you guys. Once again, inviting you to be a part of our patreon.com. Chawing, if you're able to put that, thank you. Bilis! Naka-ready! Become a member of our growing community at patreon.com/Chiqui Pineda. And at this point, I would like to feature those people who have helped us. I'm going to read their names. Okay, I'm going to show their names, and then I'm going to read their names as well. Thank you so much to Menchi, to Olan, to Kate, Beverly, Pam, Lala, Lizelle, Beck, Patty, Ginny, Pam, Beck, Rena, Dolly, and to our newest patrons that just joined us this week, Evelyn, Mary Ann, Dolly 1 and 2. I got 2 Dollys this week. And you can be a part of our growing community by going to patreon.com/Chiqui Pineda. You will see all of the perks that we offer in Patreon, from perks like behind the scenes. I'm going to share with you things that I don't normally share out here in the public. It's just a more intimate connection, really, with patrons and the fans that truly, truly care about what we do. Okay, and then don't forget to subscribe, chiquipineda.com, after this podcast, so I can connect with you faster and clearer and more effectively. On behalf of my co-creator and my producer, Charina Giron. Chawing, thank you so much for helping me today. You're amazing. You have been my ruddy buddy and podcast. We have to have a name for podcast partner. We have to create that. And that's it. That's it, Pansit. And then, once again, thanking our guest, Miss Arlene Oliveros, episode 3. And I would like to once again also thank Miss Fed de los Reyes from last week, and the week before that, Miss Leia Erigel. And, timing, Fe, I just thanked you. Get well soon. You were listening. Oh, Miss Fe. Thank you. So, podcast partner. Fe, kung may sakit ako, pwedeng ikaw? Dapat pala si Fe yung pinag-host natin today, Chawing. Partner! Ayun. Oo nga naman. Podcast partner. My partner, Chawing, thank you very much. Thank you, Fe. So with that, let's put our exiting music. Chewing, go. Play exit music. Para naman meron tayong exit. Okay, ako na nga. Yan. Okay. I shall see you again next week, hopefully with better sound, and hopefully you will join us again. Okay, with that, I thank you. Peace. God bless. Enjoy your rest of the week. Bye.